A getaway driver for two killers who used shotguns to execute three fellow drug dealers in a country lane later became a police supergrass, a court heard yesterday. The three men were allegedly killed in Essex over a row about a consignment of poor quality cannabis. They were lured to their death by a bogus promise of a major new cocaine deal. Following the execution, one of the killers likened himself to the Angel of Death. The accused murderers, Michael Steele, 55, and Jack Womes, 36, were driven away at high speed from the shootings, allegedly laughing at their actions in shooting the men in the head as they waited in a Range Rover on a snowy night in December 1995. Steele said he felt like the Angel of Death. He had done everyone a favour and got rid of the sort of people you would not want around, said Andrew Monday QC, prosecuting. Steele from Clacton, Essex, and Womes from Brockford, Suffolk, wore surgical gloves, overalls and Wellington boots for the murders at point-blank range, and afterwards was splattered with blood, according to counsel. The getaway driver for the murderers was another criminal called Darren Nichols, 31, who later told police about the incident. Nichols from Braintree, Essex, will be a major prosecution witness at the trial. Steele believed that Mr. Tate had threatened him over an earlier shipment of poor quality cannabis and decided with Womes to eliminate the threat, the prosecution has alleged. Steele marvelled at the way his partner acted, according to prosecution. Quote, he said he was cold-blooded, his partner, Jack Womes, because as soon as he got out of the vehicle, he put shots into each of their heads within a matter of moments. He said it was like a natural act, almost as if he was doing something else. It was emotionless. Mr. Monday, QC, told the jury he said that he, Steele, had shot one of the deceased with both barrels because that person had moved. He said he had reloaded and shot the other two and the gun had fallen apart. The case continues. Okay, just a few thoughts to add at the end of this particular article. Something very interesting actually is mentioned there by the prosecution, Mr. Monday QC. Now, if you've watched videos on this channel regarding the case, you'll know that ballistic testing was done very early on by a man called John Burns. And it was during this testing that they discovered that only one gun was used to kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. One gun was discharged to kill these three individuals. Now, I've always had a massive problem with Darren Nichols coming forward after these murders and saying that he spoke with Michael Steele, and his sort of version of events for that evening is that Michael Steele discharges his own gun, Jack Womes discharges his own gun, a separate gun. Michael Steele's gun then falls apart. Jack then continues shooting with his gun. So there's two guns, according to Darren Nichols, which have definitely been used in this case. But it's the way that it's worded, it doesn't make it particularly clear. But in this article here, surely this clears it up for us. Mr. Monday told the jury, he said that he, Steele, had shot one of the deceased with both barrels because that person had moved. He said he had reloaded and shot the other two and the gun had fallen apart. So this is showing here, or at least saying here, that Steele has fired his gun. He's absolutely fired his weapon. We know for a fact that Jack Womes has also discharged his weapon. He shot all of these individuals in the back of the head, according to Darren Nichols. And this is a clear indication here from the prosecution that they are happy with the fact that two shotguns were used in this case, in this crime, even when this goes completely against the ballistic testing. Now, the issue that I have isn't so much that they're speaking about this in court, that they're putting this forward, that both individuals have shot this gun. What I'm concerned about most is the fact that Darren Nichols puts this forward early on in his police interviews. Now, bearing in mind, I haven't seen all of the police interviews, only a mere handful. But the ones that I have seen, there's no sort of cross-examination from the interviewing officers regarding Nichols' story. They're quite happy for him to say that there were two guns were used. Yet, I think it was on the 9th of December, just a couple of days after the discovery of the bodies, the investigators knew, they absolutely knew, that one gun shot all of these individuals. There wasn't two guns going off, there was one gun used to kill Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. Yet when Darren Nichols comes forward and says, Mick shot them, Jack shot them, Mick went to shoot him again and his gun fell apart, Jack was shooting him in the back of the head. At no point in time does that investigating officer say, hang on a minute, Darren, well, there's only one gun used in this crime. Can you explain that? He's never put on the spot. He's never questioned about the fact that only one gun was used in this crime. Yeah, and they're even coming forward here in court to sort of hammer home the point that two people fired two separate guns. Steele's weapon falls apart. Jack's got his own gun, which he is using separately. There were two guns supposedly at the crime and two guns supposedly used. Yet that goes against the ballistic expert's opinion. Now, if this ballistic expert was, say, working for the defence, then obviously you could say, well, maybe he's sort of bending the truth a little bit here. Maybe he's imparting something to make Darren Nichols look, uncredible. But that isn't the case. This testing was done on the 9th of December. This expert was a completely neutral party. They're just there to give the police some information so that they can add that to their investigation. So this person has no reason to lie. I have every reason to believe that the fact that these shells or casings were examined microscopically, and this expert who'd been dealing in, I think it was shotguns since the 1970s, something like that, I've got no reason to believe that the information that he's come forward with or the information that he gave in court was a lie. I absolutely believe this John Burns guy, the forensic examiner, that only one gun was used in this crime. So why was Darren Nichols not pushed harder to sort of clarify or at least clear up his version of events? Can you imagine Michael Steele admitting that he had shot them with his gun, Jack had shot them with his gun? None of it made a lot of sense. Some people will say, well, what he's saying there is that Michael Steele went to fire his weapon and the gun jammed or fell apart. He then used Jack's weapon. But it's clear just by reading those passages there from the very prosecution from Mr. Monday QC that there was definitely, according to Darren Nichols, two guns used in this crime. The following newspaper article comes from the 5th of September 1997 with the headline, Farmer's Shock Over Gun Blast Bodies. The farmer, who chanced upon a Range Rover containing the bloodied bodies of 3 drug barons, admitted he was astounded when police claimed it had been parked there overnight. Peter Fearble told an Old Bailey jury he thought the vehicle and its grisly load could only have been there a matter of hours, as there was no ice on the windows and no snow on the roof. Yet when he and his friend, bricklayer Ken Jiggins, had set off from nearby White House Farm that fateful morning, they'd been forced to de-ice their Land Rover windscreen. It had been frosted up by the cold weather and a light layer of snow which had fallen. Mr. Fearble said, quote, I just didn't think that Range Rover had been there overnight. The dead men were Pat Tate, 37 of Gordon Road, Basildon, Tony Tucker, 38 of High Road, Fobbing, and Craig Rolfe, 26 of Calshot Avenue, Chafford 100. The prosecution claims they had been lured to their deaths with the promise of a cocaine deal. 2 men, Jack Womes, 36 of Main Road, Brockford, Suffolk, and Michael Steele, 54 of St Mary's Road, Great Bentley, Essex, deny killing them with a shotgun. Womes and Steele are also accused of conspiring with Peter Corey, 45 of London Road, Clacton, to smuggle cannabis between August 1st, 1995 and November 10th that year. They have all pleaded not guilty. The court heard that Mr. Fearble used Workhouse Lane in Rettendon, the scene of the murders, twice a day to feed pheasants kept on his farm. On December 7th, 1995, Mr. Jiggins was with him as they drove down the remote and bumpy track at around 8 a.m. It had snowed sometime during the night and the pair, wary of poachers, kept an eye out for fresh tyre tracks on the lane. But as they reached the last gate before the woods, they found a Range Rover blocking their way. Mr. Jiggins went up to the vehicle and tapped on the window before making the gruesome discovery of the bodies inside. The pair alerted police and the 2 uniformed officers who arrived less than 20 minutes later faced a daunting task. PC Barry Knights and Sergeant Christopher Atkins had been on normal uniform patrol when they received a call to Rettendon. Neither was prepared for the scale of destruction they found. When they saw the 3 slumped figures, they got straight on the phone to the Forces Chelmsford HQ and asked for reinforcements. Within hours, the quiet country lane was swarming with police and scenes of crime officers as the huge investigation began. The trial continues. The following newspaper article comes from the 11th of September 1997 with the headline, Grass Tells of Shootings. One of 2 men accused of the execution of 3 drug dealers laughed as he recounted the shootings the Old Bailey heard yesterday. Supergrass witness Darren Nichols, a self-confessed drugs dealer, told of the chilling moments when he picked up Jack Womes and Michael Steele from the murder scene, a lonely farm track at Rettendon near Chelmsford. Womes allegedly told how his partner's gun had fallen apart. Jack had laughed after he had said it, said Mr. Nichols. He said he drove Womes to the scene believing simply that a drug deal meeting was to take place. When he returned to the remote lane, Womes got into the back of the car and Steele got into the front passenger seat. When the front door opened and the lights came on, I saw Jack's hands. He was wearing surgical type gloves. They were covered in speckles of something which I could see was red. Mr. Nichols told the court from the way Steele spoke, he suddenly realised what was going on. I took it someone had been killed. Mr. Nichols said, Nick started to hand guns over to Jack in the back. I could see bits of the barrels pass over. They were quite short. Nick asked me several times if I was okay. I did not feel okay. He added, I did say to one of them, I hope I never fall out with you. I just said it as a comment. I think Nick said, you're not like those, it wouldn't happen to you. Steele allegedly told him that Womes was a cold-hearted person who had pointed his gun into the victim's Range Rover and put shots into all three immediately. Nichols added that Steele said, after they were dead, Jack reloaded them one at a time, shot them in the back of the head without any emotion. Steele, 54 of Angers Green, Great Bentley, and Womes, 35 of Main Road, Brockford, Suffolk, deny murdering Patrick Tate, Anthony Tucker and Craig Rolfe, all from Essex in December 1995. The prosecution alleges that the three victims had been lured to the track on the promise of a substantial cocaine deal after a falling out over a batch of poor quality cannabis resin. The trial continues. Okay, now one thing that I've picked up from this article here is where Nichols talks about the barrels being passed over inside the vehicle. Now, many of you will remember, or at least some of you will remember from previous videos, that John Burns, the ballistic expert, the firearms expert, whatever you want to call him, he claims, or he believed, that a full-length barrel gun was used. That was his own professional opinion. Now, that goes completely against what Darren Nichols is saying here, does it not? Let's just go back to what he said. He said that he saw the passing over of the barrels and they appeared quite short. Now, as I've just said, I'm certainly no firearms expert, but is this not the complete opposite as to what the forensic or ballistic expert stated, that it was a full-length barrel, a gun with a full-length barrel? This doesn't make much sense in terms of the weapon that they're looking for regarding this murder. Now, interestingly, if we go back to the testimony from the pathologist, Dr. Paula Lanas, it was her opinion that the shotgun blast to Tony Tucker was from around 9 inches in distance from the barrel to his head. So that would, in my opinion, back up the theory that we're looking for a full barrel or a long barreled weapon here, not a short stubby shotgun, as what appears to have been described here by Darren Nichols. So let me just go back to exactly what he said here. He said, Mick started to hand over parts of the gun to Jack in the back. I could see bits of barrels pass over. They were quite short. Now, to me, this is describing a sawn-off shotgun. That's what's being described in my own mind. As I say, bearing in mind, I'm certainly no professional shooter or anything like that. But that's the image that I'm getting in my head, a sawn-off shotgun, not a full-length barreled shotgun, a completely different type of weapon. And that, as I say, is backed up to some degree by what we hear from Dr. Paula Lanas, the fact that these shots, all of these shots, basically all of these shots, were fired from close range. Now, if we do a little bit of theory here for 1 second, let's just say that Craig Rolfe was the first person to be shot, which is what I believe personally. That gun is going to be put on the back of the headrest before being discharged. If this was a full-length barrel, that gun then moves slightly, the gunman probably leans in just a little bit to then fire at Tony Tucker. To me, this would put it at around 9 inches from his head when that shot is discharged. But if you look at such a smaller shotgun, a sawn-off shotgun, for instance, surely the gunman would have had to have reached in quite a distance in order to be 9 inches from Tucker's head when discharging that blast, which would obviously be a lot more dangerous considering that Pat Tate was in the back of the vehicle. One more thing that I want to pick up on regarding this whole case, and really how the defence tackled this in court, is the fact that when we go back to that first newspaper article that I read out to you regarding the fact that we have the prosecution here claiming that there was two guns being fired, It is a little bit disappointing and surprising that the defence during this trial didn't jump upon this inconsistency. And I guess for me it is a little bit surprising that the defence didn't just jump upon this opportunity to cast doubt not only on Darren Nichols' version of events, the fact that he wasn't sure what car he was driving, there was no independent eyewitnesses to say that he ever turned down that lane. He said that there were 2 shotguns used in the crime, 2 shotguns fired when there was only 1. Why is the defence not jumping and seizing upon these critical missed opportunities here? And even the latest one here regarding the barrels being passed over in the car, the fact that Darren Nichols is openly stating they appeared quite short, when the ballistics expert stated that a full-length barrel gun was used in this crime. In my opinion, they didn't need to attack and assassinate Darren Nichols' character, make him out to be silly and make him look foolish in court. They could have just stuck, as I've said in previous videos, to the bare bones of this case in order to put enough doubt in the mind of the jury as to who was really responsible for the murders on December the 6th. Many thanks for joining me for today's video. Shortly, once the outro starts, you'll be able to see some other videos from the channel, so please feel free to check those out. And also the Essex Boys playlist, which has all of the videos concerning this case in one convenient folder. Thanks again for checking out this video. I look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Take care. Cheers.